Metal Warriors, welcome again to Iron Madness. Today we have Todd Michael Hall as our special guest for today's interview. So Todd, welcome, hello.
Hola, how are you doing? Thank you for having me.
My first question, it's a little time for you to introduce yourself, to tell who is Todd Michael Hall.
Well, my name is Todd Michael Hall, and I am most known for singing for Riot V right now, but I have been in bands for many, many years. The first band that I was in that did original music was called Harlot, and it was way back in the 80s. We released an album called 25 Gets a Ride in 1988. And then later on, we released an album under a different name, Pulling Teeth, and that was in 1994. And I had quite a break after that and really didn't get started up again until 2004 when I joined Burning Star, Jack Starr's Burning Star. It took a while to get our first album out. It didn't get released until 2009, but I did end up doing 3 albums with Burning Star. And I think after the second album with Burning Star, that's when I joined Riot. So it was 2013 that I joined. And so we're coming up on 10 years this fall that I will have been in the band. And so that's kind of my mainstay, but then I do have some solo music I release here and there that's either kind of light rock or hard rock stuff too. I had like a hard rock solo album that I released in 2021 called Sonic Healing. And that music was written with Kurt Vanderhoof of Metal Church. So a lot of people are familiar with him too, I guess.
Okay, fantastic. I have a question about your starts in this music, because I want to know, why did you start listening rock music, heavy metal? So I want to know that.
Well, when I was really young, I was influenced by what my mom was listening to, and we would drive around in cars. She was pretty eclectic, though. I mean, she would listen to just normal pop stuff. She would listen to country, but she also listened to hard rock stuff too. I remember having Deep Purple, and I remember having other stuff like that, like the Rolling Stones and things. So in my earliest years, like when I was 9 years old and taking piano lessons stuff, I liked Barry Manilow and Lionel Richie, which are just pop piano player guys. But I did have 2 older brothers, and my older brothers were, got into rock music. And so at a very early age, by the time, obviously you heard rock music on the radio. I mean, rock music was just way more prevalent, I think, back then. Nowadays, it seems like the hip hop culture is much more popular in the pop music and on the radios. But yeah, so my older brother John, when I was in Harlot, I was in a band with him. He was the bass player, but he also wrote a lot of the music, and I would write lyrics and vocal melodies for our songs. And he was really into Ted Nugent and Van Halen, and bands like that. My other brother Rick was into REO Speedwagon and Styx, and We All Love Boston, and so I kind of got exposed to that sort of music early on. And then in the by the time '83 rolled around, all kind of heavy metal, I guess what I would call traditional metal nowadays, really exploded in the U.S. with Iron Maiden and Dio and all those types of bands. So that was all quite the rage for me when I was younger, and so it was just kind of natural, I think, to be exposed to it. It was something that I, you naturally grew up to, which now, like, because back then, like, rap didn't really exist, but rap is like absolutely huge now, and there's a lot of people get influenced by that sort of music, but that's not something I really grew up with. It was just kind of starting when I was younger in my formative years.
Okay. You said that when you were younger you played piano. I didn't know that. You still play piano?
I when I write music, I sometimes write on a piano, and then I actually have, I record vocals at home. I kind of have my own studio, if you will, which when you record vocals, it's pretty easy. You just need a reasonably soundproof room and a good microphone. But when I record, like, I have a keyboard right there, because I will sometimes figure out melodies on the keyboard, but then it helps me figure out harmonies too.
Yes.
Sometimes depending on how I write, like when I write a song, sometimes I will write it on guitar or I write it on piano first, just playing out chords. But often, probably half the time when I write a song, a lot of times what'll happen is a melody will pop in my head, especially one with like a lyrical hook to it. And so what I do then is I go to my piano and then I start figuring out what notes I'm singing on the piano. And when I do that, it helps me identify what key I'm in. And then I say, oh, well, if I'm in that key, these types of chords would work with it. And I start playing those chords on the piano around the melody. So yeah, I'm not like a great piano player. I'm not real good at left hand and right hand both doing different things at the same time, But yeah, I still do play piano a bit.
Okay, I was curious. I wanted to know that. Before in your introduction, you already answered this, but to clarify more, now Riot is it called not just like that? It's Riot V or Riot 5? Because some people still have like the question in their mind. So explain, or if you know what's that, why is that?
Yeah, it can definitely be confusing for people because when I joined the band, we added the V, which is actually a Roman numeral for 5.
For 5.
And what it represented was what we would call the 5th chapter of the band, because I'm the 5th kind of official singer. I mean, they've really had a couple other people, but on live shows, like Mike Torelli sang live. But as far as studio albums, I'm the 5th singer. So they consider that the 5th chapter. That was something they did because in 2012, Mark Reale, the original founder of Riot, passed away.
Yes.
So they wanted to add the V, the 5 to the model number, in order to, out of respect to him, just a signal. It was kind of a significant change for the band.
Yeah,
but really,
of course.
I think around the world, most people think of us as Riot because we're kind of a continuation of the same thing. Mike, the guitar player, had been in Riot since '88, and Donnie, the bass player, originally started with Riot working with Mark around 1984, and obviously he was a principal songwriter on Thundersteel, which is kind of a seminal album, I guess, for Riot. So yeah, so we're known as Riot 5, but most people just call us Riot.
Riot. Okay, but it's not a V, it's a 5.
Definitely not a V, it's a 5.
Okay, good to know that.
We probably, in hindsight, we probably should have not done the V and done a 5 instead, but oh well.
No, but it's great, it's great. Now people will know it, don't worry. Okay, so now I wanted to know some things about your voice, because in studio albums and in live shows, you still can sing at the same high level, but for a lot of singers it's difficult to maintain the same level on live shows because of the age. It's difficult to arrive to certain notes. So I don't know, are you a bit afraid to not be able to sing some songs in the future? I mean, probably it's normal, but for now you maintain the high level in studio and in live shows. But have you thought about that?
It's a good question. It's something I've actually thought about really from when I was much younger. Also because, a lot of the people that I would love, then I would go see them live, and they would have, maybe I would call an off night where they don't sound so good. And it's really a combination of things. I mean, first of all, it starts with kind of in the studio. In the studio, you can do things that you can't really reproduce live very much just because of breath space.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so if you, because you can punch in and punch out and use different tracks, so consequently, I can make things happen live. Like to me, a perfect example is if you look at the song by Skid Row, "I Remember You." It's a very difficult song to sing live because the breath and everything, it just your voice stays up high and the breath just keeps coming. I'm not
Uh-huh.
saying no one can sing the whole chorus, but you'll notice a lot of times during the chorus when you get to the phrase "I remember you," they hold the microphone out to the crowd because they've just run out of breath, they've run out of space.
Yeah,
uh,
okay.
um, and so I think you have to be a little conscious of that and know how you want to reproduce it live. Now, some bands are good with their backup singers. They'll come up and they'll take a line so that the singer has that moment to breathe. So that's a good technique. And I think sometimes you can be too ambitious. I actually thought about that recently because I bought the new Striper album, Transgressor, I think it's called,
Yeah, good
and and
album.
I and I noticed. I don't know what's going on with Michael Swede. I think he knows people like to hear some high screams. He's just screaming all over on that thing, and going really high and stuff. So I kind of wonder, like, what got into him? Why did he do that? But I think sometimes in the studio you can get ambitious and not realize, oh, I might have to. Yeah, that's right. I have to sing these live too. And then I think ultimately outside of the studio, it really comes down to you as a person, how you sing, and then how you learn to sing live. Like I started singing live when I was much younger, 15 years old, and I did lose my voice and I did have trouble singing, and so you do have to learn over time how to reproduce your voice live, because the reality is, like in the studio, I can sing a lot harder than I really want to do live, just because live I
Hmm.
have to sing 20 some songs and I have to do it night after night.
Yeah.
So you have to find that way to produce the song and have it sound as close as you can, to the studio version without it hurting your voice. And so the key is also being able to do it, kind of night after night, and then hopefully not get sick. I ran into a little bit of trouble actually last summer. We started playing out shows again, and I found it really difficult to regain my falsetto between shows. And when we did more than one show, I was struggling a little bit those other nights, and I ended up finding out I had a little bit of a callus on my vocal cord, so I had to go through some vocal therapy and stuff and rest for a while to get that
Yes.
back to normal. So it's certainly something to think about, especially because in the heavy metal world, the genre that we're in, the style of singing is a little, I guess, unnatural, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
I don't know if unnatural is the best word, but like it's hard on your throat, especially if you're not careful.
Uh-huh.
So it is something I think about. I think the other thing that really helps me is um, I'm mostly working, in an office setting, and I'm not necessarily talking that much. Although, ironically, I think some of the reason I had vocal trouble last year is because I was doing so many Zoom meetings and things. And when you're on a Zoom session, you tend to speak a lot louder. So there's this notion of making sure you place your voice in the right spot, use a lot of forward resonance. Forward resonance means basically when you're speaking, you can feel your lips and your teeth kind of vibrating.
Okay. Yeah.
That's how you know you're putting your voice out there, as opposed to when I speak like this and my voice is
Uh-huh.
more in my throat. You want your voice to be more out front. There's little trick techniques. Don't talk a lot in the car. Don't speak over loud music. Things like that, because those are things that make you lose your voice. So
Hmm.
sorry for the long answer, but
No,
there's
no.
a
It's
lot
okay.
that
It's
goes
interesting,
into it.
of course.
I was going to say, I think it definitely makes a difference how people take care of themselves too.
Ah, of
Some
course.
people, obviously they're into drugs or a lot of drinking. They don't get sleep. They party, so that, and I obviously I try to stay fit and healthy, and I'm not into doing crazy things. So that and the amount of singing you're doing, that's I guess that's another factor I
No,
didn't
yeah, yeah,
mention.
for sure, for sure. Yeah. And by the way, it's possible to maintain a balanced diet going on tour, because you seem like healthy, like fit. So I don't know if you follow like a routine or a diet and going on tour. when you go on tour, it is possible to continue with that? I don't know.
I think for me, I use, I weight train, so I lift weights. I've done that probably 3 times a week for like 32, 33 years now.
Uh-huh.
And that can be tough to do on the road. Although if the tour is long enough, I will maybe bring some exercise bands or something so I can try to do some of that.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing I do is I walk every day. I walk about 10,000 steps every day. And not all at once. It's like, I'll do a little bit here and a little bit there.
Yes.
And that's something I can usually maintain on the road pretty easily. So
Yes.
if I'm performing in your town, most likely if you're around the hotel, you'll see me taking off and going for a walk. I love to go for walks because it gives me a chance to see the cities we're in also. So yeah, I'm able to maintain that. The food can be a little more tough.
Yeah, I guess.
But not too bad. I mean, I think in general, especially because we're in Europe and Japan, that's where we play mostly
Yes.
abroad. And usually the food abroad is not as bad for you as maybe like the food you would get here in the U.S. at fast food restaurants and things. And so when I'm traveling, I just try to find as many fruits and vegetables as I can that way. Because the meat, I mean, I eat meat and I like meat, but that's always easy to find, but finding fruit and vegetables is the harder thing. So it takes a little extra effort, but fortunately, we're not on the road that long. If you're on the road for a long time, I think it becomes much more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So now returning to Riot V, you're going on tour in less than a month. So I wanted to know the intention, not the intention, the why did you decide to go on tour now? Because your last studio album, in fact, I have it here. It's Armor of Light, and since then, since 2018. You haven't released any new studio album, so I don't know. A lot of bands go on tour to introduce the new album or something. It's not your case, at least for now. I don't know if you have the intention to release a new album soon.
Yeah.
More or less.
A lot of times, when we go out, we don't tend to always go out for long runs. Like, I mean, a lot of times for us, usually we'll max out at about a week or maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
And a lot of times, there's a lot of festivals in Europe. And so often we'll get offered to play a festival. And then because we're flying over, it just makes sense for us to try to book some shows around it.
Yeah.
So this weekend we have coming up is really based in May, is really based around the Up the Hammers Festival in Greece. We were invited to headline that festival. And so because of that, that's how we ended up booking a show in Germany and a couple shows in Spain.
Yes.
And essentially, the other thing is you agree to these shows like a long time in advance. It's been probably almost a year, I think, since we committed to doing the Up the Hammers Festival. And at the time, we thought our new album would be out. We've been working on recording it actually, we've worked on it for years. The pandemic really slowed us down. I finished all of my vocals in January. And so we started mixing it then, and we've just kind of had some hassles with mixing it. And so we're just running farther behind. We actually thought the new album would be out this summer, but it's probably going to be delayed slightly just because it takes a little time for the record label to get everything ready. But I know we don't have the final mixes done yet. We're actually on our 3rd round of trying to get to the final mix. So we just keep trying. We remixed it once and thought we didn't like the sound of the drums. So Frank went back in and re-recorded all the drums all over again. And then we've gotten it mixed again after that, but still I'm not happy. So now we're trying a 3rd session of mixing it. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, I mean, I think with us, we don't I do realize what you're saying that for a lot of bands, like I think Saxon is really good for that because
Yeah.
Saxon put out a lot of albums and like they got on that cycle where they put out an album and then they go do a bunch of
Yeah,
shows.
it's
Put
album
out an
tour,
album.
album tour. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Uh-huh.
think for us, we're not usually like, because Saxon will usually put together a pretty long tour where they hit all the areas in one big tour. Whereas for us, we usually have little chunks. And so we do a little bit here and do a little bit there. And it's usually spread out over time.
Yeah. Well, so I hope we have the new album for next year, and hope to see you in some more festivals, and then you can play your new songs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm quite sure the album will be out this year sometime.
Great.
We were, like we have said, we were hoping for the summer, but it's probably going to be delayed a little bit from that just because of
Yeah.
how late it's running. We do keep flirting with like Rockfest Barcelona. I know that's another potential show for us, so I'm hoping we'll be able to line that one up again soon. It was a lot of fun to play that one last time. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
I always enjoy getting to go to Spain. It's a great country and a lot of great people and a lot of great metal fans.
You're welcome here. So I want to know with artist would you like to make a collaboration or compose a song, whatever. And it could be any artist, big bands or underground bands. I don't mind, whatever.
Oh wow. It's hard because there's really just so many artists that
Yes.
would be fun. I mean, to me when I was younger, Jeff Tate and Eric Adams
Yes.
from Manowar, those two were kind of my two top singers, I guess, that I like the most. And I did end up getting to meet Jeff Tate way back in the late 80s, but I met him more as a fan, I guess you'd say.
Yes.
And then later on, when I was in Burning Star, we were on Magic Circle Music record label, and we played the Magic Circle Music Festival in Germany 2 years in a row, 2008, 2009. And but I remember when I first went to their studio, I asked if I could meet Eric. He came and watched me sing, so I got to meet him as a fellow singer. I know he stood on the side of the stage and watched us perform. So stuff like that was pretty exciting for me.
Yeah.
So part of me thinks, yeah, doing a collaboration with Jeff or with Eric would be kind of fun. But at the same time, then there's other people that I just love, like to me, Tommy Shaw from Styx. I love his voice and I love his songwriting and stuff. And he's so versatile that I think, collaborating with someone like that would be really fun too. So, I would say it's a difficult question to answer. I mean, there's just a lot of people that would probably be fun to play with. Where did you get your shirt?
This Riot shirt, I bought it in a show in Barcelona, in Salamandra, I think, with Primal Fear, but I don't remember exactly if it was
Okay.
that show. And it's curious because, as you know, this interview is for my YouTube channel called Iron Madness. So when I started the channel, I put the name Iron Madness, but then it started to become bigger, and I wanted something to name the subscribers. And Iron Madness wasn't cool because it's probably a good name, but for the channel, but not for the fans. So I started thinking, and I bought this T-shirt, and I really like Riot. So then when I turned it back, I saw the
Metal
sentence.
Warriors?
Yeah, the letter, and I said, yeah, that's going to be the name for my subscribers. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can see.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Metal Warrior. So since then, my subscribers here in the channel are called Metal Warriors, of course.
Nice.
Okay, let's continue. I have a couple of questions, but it's not about music. The first one is about the games and the hobbies you had when you were a little kid.
When I was a little kid, I did like sports a lot. Like I wasn't necessarily really good playing for my schools and all that, but I always liked basketball. I used to like playing football. We're just talking as a kid, like neighborhood, we call them pickup games where just the kids all meet in the neighborhood and play. So I liked American football. I actually played soccer, what you guys know
Yes.
is football. I played that when I
Yeah.
was younger also, as well as basketball. I played a little bit of baseball, but was never very good at it. Later on in life, I picked up tennis. I really enjoyed playing tennis. I also picked up rock climbing, so that's a really a favorite sport of mine. But that's stuff I did
Hmm.
more as an adult. So those are the kind of things I like doing. I used to be outside all the time. I also like bicycles, like riding around on my bicycle. I used to
I really like it.
tear them apart and rebuild them, and I would ride all over the place all the time. And nowadays, I've kind of transitioned from bicycles to motorcycles. I like motorcycles now too.
Okay. Okay. And the last of these non-music questions, it's about films. I don't know if you really like to go to cinema or to watch movies at home, but I want you to rate three movies from 1 to 10 to give points. Okay?
Oh, okay. All right.
Let's try. The first one is Star Wars.
Well, that's funny because that's I would give it a 10. I guess a 10 in the sense that I don't think it's the best movie ever made, but to me, as a movie that had an impact, I always say that that's my favorite movie. And sorry to give you a long explanation, but in 1977, my mom had gone on a trip with my grandma, and so my father was home with us. There was four of us kids at the time, and I was only like 8 years old, and he took us to a movie, and we went to see Star Wars at the theater. And as an 8-year-old in 1977, back then the technology was
Yes, yes.
very amazing, and it just absolutely blew my mind. And so I remember, every Christmas after that, I had to get Star Wars figures and things. And
Yes.
oh yeah, so no, Star Wars is a 10 for me, not because it was necessarily the best cinema, but just because the impact it had on me was.
The second one is Lord of the Rings.
I really enjoy the Lord of the Rings trilogy movies. I don't know why I like those kinds of movies. First of all, I really do like movies. That's probably kind of a hobby for me. I end up, I
Okay.
don't really tend to watch TV anymore. I tend to just watch movies. I have, in my house, I took my living room and I turned it into kind of more of a movie room. So I have a projector and I have a screen that I pull down. So I watch movies, and the screen's about 10 foot wide. So, it's really big. So yeah, I really do enjoy watching movies. And the only types of movies I really don't like are, I'm not really into scary movies. So I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't want to feel like I'm on edge the whole time. But yeah, the Lord of the Rings trilogy type movies, those are movies I enjoy, kind of the sci-fi and adventure movies and things like that. So yeah, I would probably rate them pretty high, probably in the 8, 9.
8, 9. Okay, okay. And the third one is Back to the Future.
I thought that was a very entertaining movie. I would rate that probably in that 8, 9 category as well.
Okay.
Just 'cause, it had a lot of interesting, the way it played with the time travel theme and had
Yes,
a lot
yes,
of
yes.
stuff from the future that then you saw the links in the past and the little connections with
Yeah.
Chuck Berry getting the phone call and just little things like that. So it's a very interesting movie, kind of similar to a movie like Forrest Gump in that regard.
Yes. We are going with the last question, but it's not a question because I want you to explain and tell the fans and people who's watching this to support the band, to tell whatever you want, to thank them and to tell them to go to see you in this upcoming tour in Barcelona or wherever. So now it's time for you and you can talk.
Well, hey, this is Todd Michael Hall from Riot V, and I'm the singer, and I've been in the band for about 10 years now, and it's been an incredible blessing in my life getting the opportunity to be in Riot and to be able to travel around the world and play shows. It's what I call it a passion thing for me because it's not something I really make my living doing, but I would love to be on stage and I love to perform for people, and I just want to thank everyone for the support they've shown the band, and encourage you to continue to support us. We keep at it and we keep coming out because, you bring us there. We do have these 2 shows coming up here in España in May. And so the one is in Salamandra. That's at Salamandra in Barcelona.
Yes.
And then the other one is in Madrid. So, so May 18th and May 19th. So really looking forward to them. So I'm hoping everyone gets to make it out and we get to see all the metal warriors with their fists up in the air singing along with us.
Super. Todd, that was all. Thank you so much for being here, and hope to see you very soon. In fact, we are going to see you very soon, the 19th. So see you there.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, well, I look forward to it, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Todd Hall from Riot V. Metal Warriors, nos vemos en la próxima.